Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 195 of the NZXT podcast, the official podcast at NZXT community. This podcast is recorded live every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on the official NZXT Twitch and is available to stream on demand on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud. My name is Mike, and with me, as always, is Ivan. How are you doing, Ivan?
How it do, baby boo? Happy Friday. We are live with our third NZXT Case-A-Thon podcast. We have a very special guest today, but before I introduce them, I want to make some quick announcements. So announcement number one is, yes, the Case-A-Thon. We have some awesome deals going on right now on our Amazon store. Go to nzxt.co/Amazon, click on the cases tab, and you can save up to 38% on NZXT cases. It's a pretty good deal, Mike. I don't know. I think people should definitely take advantage of it. What do you think?
You're literally
Right?
saving money, so yes, it's definitely worth it. You're literally
Yes.
saving money.
You are losing money if you don't buy an NZXT case right now. All right, next announcement is for those of you who are tuned in live right now on twitch.tv/NZXT. You are in for a very special treat, which is a giveaway. We are giving away 3 NZXT cases. The winner gets to choose any case they want. People love this giveaway. I think the last 2 times we did it, like everyone that won couldn't believe they can actually choose whatever case they want. So it's awesome. Type exclamation giveaway in the chat. You'll get a link to the giveaway. It tells you how to enter. And if you stick around to the end of the stream, you will get a super secret word from Mike that's going to give you a bunch of entries into the giveaway. So stick around to the end. Last announcement before I introduce our guest is if you are an NZXT Club member, you are also eligible for some free Poochie points just for tuning in live. If you tune in for 15 minutes, you get 500 PP. Tune in for 30 minutes, you get 1,000 PP. And if you stick around for over an hour, you get 5,000 PP. I actually regret calling them Poochie points, but I do enjoy saying PP. So PP, PP, PP. It's a lot of PPs. Also, if you don't know what the NZXT Club is, go to nzxt.co/club. It'll tell you all about it and why you should join. Basically, what it is, it's a fun way to interact with NZXT on social media and on Discord and to just get free stuff. So I have a very special surprise too for the club members coming up next week. We are introducing 2 new giveaway items as voted by the community. So stay tuned for that. Anyway, enough about me, enough about the club, enough about everything else. Let me introduce our special guest, Jules. Welcome to the NZXT podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great.
All right, Jules. You've been an NZXT customer support at NZXT for many years. How did you get into this role?
So I got this role pretty much around the time that we were still in pandemic. And I actually started off in just as a regular customer service agent. And then what happened is about 2 weeks into me being here, they're like, you really know like a lot of the tech support stuff. Do you just want to jump straight into being like a tech support agent? And like, I'm in.
Nice. And that was, I guess, almost 5 years ago, right?
Yeah, so I'll be at my 5-year come the end of September this year.
Well, half a decade. So what's your experience been like helping builders in regards to the NZXT cases? Because we are here to talk about cases.
Yeah. So when it comes to helping out with especially like case builds, it's a lot of people, you get some basic questions that'll come up like, hey, I received my case and I don't have any of the mounting accessories. And it's usually like, hey, check the basement. There's an accessory box down there, should get you everything you need. Or, it'll be somebody like they'll read through the manual and they'll see the words like Intel front panel. And they're like, well, I have an AMD motherboard. So is this going to work? And it's like, yes, it'll work with most boards nowadays. Like, you don't have to worry. It's just what the connector's called. So it's a lot of that. It's and then a lot of first time builders who are just kind of getting into it, and they have a lot of questions. It's the best thing on that is getting those questions of like, hey, kind of getting a fresh perspective of somebody who's maybe not been doing this for as long as I have.
So I guess
I thought you
go for it.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were gonna say it's people that don't know how to take the case out of the box. It's actually
Uh,
kind of hard, believe it or not.
yeah, I've gotten a few of those. It's just like,
Yeah.
hey, what am I supposed to do on this? Or like, why is like, am I supposed to leave all this plastic on the case? So like, well, that's your own preference, but I would just say, it's going to be very satisfying when you peel it off.
True.
So I was actually gonna kind of leeway into that. It was you talked about like accessory bosses, but like what other questions, like what's like the most common questions that you usually get from like people coming into customer support?
Most common question I'm going to get in there is actually nowadays regarding regarding GPUs. Like people are, we're seeing graphics cards get bigger and bigger, and people are concerned about, hey, is this going to fit in the case? Upside is, at least with all of our cases, I haven't run into one that runs into a problem anymore. Even the new H5, I've not seen anything with it, but there's a lot of people who will call in, and it's a lot of compatibility. It's a lot of like, hey, if I get, if I put this AIO in my case, am I gonna lose out on space? Long answer, not really. Short answer is, do you have an H5?
That's true. So I guess speaking of H5 and 5, you're coming on 5 years. How has like the questions changed from back when you began here 5 years ago to like now? Like how has, I guess, the how has like the questions and the concerns changed throughout these years?
A lot of it now has actually been, it used to be a lot of this, I know, like Mike, you and I used to work CS together, and I know a big question we would always get is, how do I improve, like, hey, the airflow on this isn't great, how do I improve this, how do I do this? That was a big question fairly early on, and it was just like, hey, just you just have to think a little bit differently about how you're building. The airflow is good, the airflow will be solid, but just like a slight few tweaks to your build that maybe you're not used to. Nowadays, it's a lot of it is a lot of just a lot of pre questions, a lot of how do I actually set things up.
Yeah, it's funny looking back. There was, and we talked about this last week with Kevin. Which, by the way, if you missed that episode, check out the VOD. It's very informative on YouTube. Um, there was a time, when back in the day where NZXT was not known for having airflow, and it was, apart from getting questions about that on customer service, it was literally a meme on social media. It was just a joke. Like NZXT does not have airflow, and now, all our cases are basically covered in holes. They're all, and they'll have like a lot of, great performance features. So I do imagine not getting those types of questions anymore. I am curious, Jules, because I'm sure you do get asked a lot in, tech support and customer services, you know, when it comes to choosing the type of case, what do you think is the most important thing that a customer should consider when choosing an NZXT case?
The biggest thing that you should consider when picking out a case is actually, what are you looking to do with the computer and what parts do you want to use? Because it can be really frustrating when you get, like, you've got every part picked out for your build, you got everything, you feel everything's perfect, and then you go to put in your motherboard and you realize that, oh, I bought a slightly different ATX motherboard that's just a little bit wider, and it's like, oh, it's not fitting in the case, especially, oh, it's running into the cable bar in my case, stuff like that. So it's always check your parts first, be sure on that. If you need to go a little bit bigger, go a little bit bigger. And then after that, I always ask, like, okay, and you know what, you've got, maybe at that point you're probably two choices. You've maybe narrowed it down. It's like, okay, maybe I don't need something super compact, or maybe I want something tall. If you kind of go from there. And then it's just, how are you going to use your computer? Are you going to have it, like, is it going to be a statement piece on your desk, or is it going to be something that lives under your desk or out of sight? Maybe you don't need, if it's going to be something that's going to be out of sight, then maybe you don't need to go for the RGB version. Maybe you just go for the regular, just clean flow version. But if you, like, hey, I want a statement piece, I want to load this thing up with more LEDs and a Christmas tree, then absolutely go for the RGB version. Have fun with it.
Yeah.
But it's
Before you contact customer service, you should ask yourself, am I a desktop or a desk bottom, right, Jules? Right where you want your case?
Yeah.
All right. So, what advice would you give people when it comes to choosing between the H5, the H6, the H7, or the H9? Like, and the reason why I chose those cases in particular and I left the H1 out is not because I don't like the H1. It's because the H5, the H7, the H6, and the H9, they all essentially fit the same motherboard size. You can put obviously a mini ITX motherboard in all of them, but
But
most
do you
people
really want to?
have, yeah, most people have an ATX Mobo, right? And it's going to come down to those four cases. So, what advice would you give people to decide between those four in particular?
So a lot of that actually is just going to come down to, some people like me. I have an H6. This has been my case since release. And when it came to picking it out, I moved from a 7 to a 6. I wanted something a little shorter, a little more compact, even though it's a little bit wider. And really, it's going to come down to what's going to fit best in your setup. Um, some of us want to have that out of sight PC that if you're going to go for that, that's your own choice. I prefer having my PC visible. It's fun. It's a nice little conversation piece. But if you're going to have it tucked under your desk, then maybe something like the 5 or the 7 will be an excellent fit. But please don't put an H9 under your desk. Unless it's like unless you have it like off to the side where someone can see it. But I see people like tuck an H9 under their desk, and I'm just like, please let it be out there. Let it be something that people can check out.
Yeah, and I brought up the NZXT Airflow meme earlier at the start of the show, but I think another NZXT meme over the years has been this whole desktop desk bottom debate. And me personally, I am a desktop, not a desk bottom. I do think the PC should be on the desk, not just for looks, but also just performance, man. Like keeping a PC on the floor just requires more maintenance because you have to keep it cleaner,
Yeah,
basically. It's a little
it is more
annoying.
work, especially it doesn't
Yeah.
matter if you have if you have a carpeted room, especially do not put your PC on the floor if you have a carpeted room. Just
Or if you have Zeldas.
yeah, if you have pets, it's better just have it on the desk.
Yeah.
Because when you have your PC on the floor, it's going to pull in more dust. It's going to get more debris. It's going to be exposed to it a lot more. And I have both. I have another PC that's hidden under my desk right now that I use for VR. And so, it's like you can do the multi setup, but end of the day, this is my main, and I want to show it off.
How often should you be? I know there's some people that never cleaned a PC, so like, how often should you clean your PC if you don't have pets? And then like, if you have pets and it's carpeted and it's on the floor, with maybe a wood piece underneath, like, how often should you be cleaning your PC?
So if you have no pets, if you have a relatively clean, if you're like not an area that's super dry, especially you have that whole situation where it's like you have just a good environment for the PC, you could probably get away with maybe every 3 to 4 months. But I would still say maybe every 2 months, every 60 to 90 days. Just set a time on your calendar. Set a time of like, hey, this is going to be like maybe maybe a Saturday morning where I'm not doing anything, or you just have a day. It's like just pop the panels off, take some compressed air to it, or get like a good ESD safe vacuum and just clean the dust out. Especially because if you do it a little more often, it doesn't give the chance for the dust to stick, and you'll be fine. It'll look great all year. With our cases, because we use fine mesh, I actually don't find a whole lot of dust getting into the PC itself. It gathers usually for my H6, it's going to be on that front panel. And my camera just decided to turn itself.
Yeah, I'm gonna show people the.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I went completely black for a moment.
What are you doing there, Jules?
I don't know.
So I'm gonna show people. I haven't cleaned mine in a
There we
while,
go.
but you can kind of see that the dust right here is just settled. But
Yeah.
inside the case, it's like I literally don't see anything at all. Like, try to see here.
Yeah, because if I would say, let's say I've been maybe about 2 months now. if I just reach it.
It's so easy.
Yeah, like this is my front panel on mine, and you can see the dust through it. But inside my case, there's not a speck. There's going to be now. After I took this off, there's definitely going to be some in there. But you know, this is maybe about 2 months.
That's not bad at all.
And I have a pet. I have a long hair cat. She hangs out on my desk.
You have a long hair cat and you have long hair, so it's a double whammy there, Jules. All right, Jules, I know you have the H6, but what's your personal favorite NZXT case to build in and why?
I'm actually going to have to say it actually is the 6. The 6 is a case that surprised me because I actually had the 2022 version of the H7 before this. And before that, I had the H440, which I still have it. It's in a box in the closet with my Snowblind mod done to it and everything. I was planning on originally redoing that mod on the 7, but then I got my hands on the sample of the 6 and I was doing the customer service test build for it. I was checking it out and seeing all the features. I was like, I think I like dual chamber cases. I think I really like this, and I think I'm just going to end up getting it. And what ended up happening is I got myself one of the cases. I've done my tweaks to it, and that's just like, changing out the panels because I like to have a black outside, white inside for my cases because I'm an RGB nut. I like to kind of just show everything off.
The H6 is definitely, I think, I agree with you. I think it is probably the best case to build in, and it also, I think, is the best case with the newest NZXT components, especially the single frame fans. I love how they look on the bottom. It looks pretty nice.
Can't really see it because it's so bright in it. But I have the F280, so the dual 140 fan. The back wall is the F360, and then I have the Kraken Elite V2 with the 360 millimeter on top. So I've got just all core fans. The only fan that's left in here that's not a core fan is the rear 120, and I might just take that out entirely and put like a sensor panel or something back there.
Kriva6 in the chat is saying, what's this obsession with PC cases? Are you going to seriously talk about cases for 1 hour? The answer is no. We're going to talk about cases for at least 4 hours because we're going to do four Case-A-Thon streams. So
I thought you were just going to keep me for 4 hours.
We are obsessed with cases. That's why we are NZXT. All right, Jules, what should someone check before buying a case just to make sure all their parts are compatible with their build?
Your motherboard form factor, your graphics card. Those are going to be the biggest parts that are going to dictate what's going to fit in your case. Motherboard is going to be the first one. I always say and that's the easiest one. It's go in and just see, is it an ATX motherboard? Is it an MATX motherboard? Is it an EATX motherboard? Because those are still even popular. And you'll even have some motherboards that show, it's ATX, but it's a little bit wider. But especially our boards are all very standard ATX, like the same mounting pattern, same size. And I so want to build with one of the new boards.
I know, soon. My dream is to one day build in an EATX board and just max it out. Like just have like 2 graphics cards and capture card and even a sound card on that thing. Just have it all picked out.
No, like these, when you get to like the enthusiast EATX boards, I've done a few enthusiast builds just doing build commissions before I was working here, just helping people out with like, hey, I need a modeling PC or I need a CAD PC, and I was like, okay, well, how far do you want to go? And I've been given some fun budgets, like, yeah, I want to do this. Like, oh, we're effectively at money's not an option. Okay, let's have some fun. I'm gonna see if I can like get you a Quadro or something like that.
Yeah. What would you say is the biggest mistake people make when choosing a case?
Either buying too much case or buying too little case. I've seen what I mean when they buy too much case is, hey, I've got all these parts figured out, and they go with like an H9 or an H7. Why are you putting an ITX motherboard in that system, especially without a vertical GPU bracket? Like that's so
Yeah,
much
that's
open space.
that's an interesting point, and I guess I was going to save this question to the end of the show, but I'll ask it now since you brought it up, and because Eternalo just asked it. They said, I've been wanting an H6 for a while, but I have a micro ATX motherboard. Would it look weird? And before I let you answer, I do want to let them know that uh, not about looking weird, but I have seen that often. I do see a lot of micro ATX, even mini ATX motherboards in cases, and uh, I would say looks are subjective, but it'll work, right? But I'll let you answer that, Jules. Do you think it will look weird?
Micro ATX, no. Micro ATX, especially it's going to depend on your other parts. I would definitely recommend if you're going to go micro ATX and you're not going to utilize like if you're just going to have a graphics card, you're not going to use an extra add-in card like a sound card or a capture card, then I would definitely recommend getting a vertical GPU kit and really just show off your graphics card, because it'll help fill out the case a little more. And you're not, especially the best part about micro ATX, and the reason I really like it as a form factor, is when you go to ITX, you actually pay more than most ATX motherboards. But when you go micro, you can actually save a few bucks, and
Yeah.
that's money that goes into a better graphics card. That's money that goes into more RAM. That's money that goes into better storage. It's when it comes to a build, think smarter, not harder. So a micro ATX motherboard can look great. Even the cost savings on that could just go straight into buying a vertical GPU mount. So there you go. There's your savings. There's your look on it. Because especially,
Yeah.
I can't use with the vertical GPU kit in here. I can't use the extra ports anyway. So why would I have the extra parts of the board?
Yeah, and I always tell people too when they ask me for advice. I don't know why people ask me for advice, but they do, and I always tell them, in my humble opinion, micro ATX is probably the most like underappreciated form factor of all motherboard sizes, because most people don't need an ATX, let alone an eATX, right?
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because most people don't need more than one PCIe slot, right? But then if you go mini ITX, you're a little limited, and also those boards are, kind of expensive. But then micro ATX, it's like the perfect middle ground. You have just enough for what you need. I see iFix in here saying, but there's only two RAM slots. Well, yeah, like most people don't need 8 RAM slots either.
Well, yeah. When you're looking at micro, that's the other reason I like micro, is you're generally more likely to find 4 RAM slots. You'll still
Yeah,
have
4.
two dual channel sets ready to go. But if you go ITX, you're usually only going to get 2. There are a few ITX motherboards out there that will support 4 RAM sticks, but those are incredibly compact. Those are like you are going to end up making some sacrifices in terms of what features you're going to have available. So
Yeah.
that's why I love micro. And actually, for the longest time, my main motherboard I had that I was moving between different PCs was a Asus Maximus 4 Gene. And that one it was back when Asus's Maximus series still had a micro ATX option. So micro is a great form factor. It gives you a lot of flexibility, and it's one that I like building in because it can still look good in an ATX case, especially mid towers like the ones we have. Maybe in a full tower it might look a little small, but in a mid tower it's still gonna look good.
So I guess since we're kind of on the topic of just building, just building PCs and everything, when someone gets their NZXT case or any case, what's like the first thing that most people should do before starting to build, and especially for like a thing that most people don't do?
Build outside of your case first. Make sure all of your parts are properly working, and especially if you're ordering from multiple retailers and you're ordering over time. I also say this is, I don't I don't do the whole ordering this piece at the beginning of the month, this piece 2 weeks later. Save up. Make sure you try to order everything at once because you want to build outside the case. You want to make sure everything's working first. Breadboarding is a great way to start because I can't tell you how frustrated I've been in the past where I've just kind of went like, hey, I'm just going to build this. And I get everything put together and the motherboard is just toasted. And then I have to completely tear a PC down, go through an RMA process with whatever retailer I go through. And it's a headache. It can also be a heartache. And when you're working, I did build commissions for the longest time. I would have people reach out to me as like, I want a gaming PC or I want a work PC. And I would order all the parts and then I'd have to tell them, it's like, hey, I got everything put together and we're running into a problem. I need to tear it down. I'm going to have to reach out to the retailer. And in most cases, I don't want to make someone wait. So I'm paying out of pocket for me to buy an extra motherboard, stuff like that. So it's always just test your parts first, be ready, have that ready. And especially when you do that, it gets you ready for kind of the next step of building, which is getting everything actually in the case. A lot of it is already going to be prepped and ready to go for you.
Is there an ideal order when it comes to installing the components to make it easier, especially if you're building outside of the case? Like, what's the order people should be connecting everything?
Start off with just everything's going to start with the motherboard. The motherboard is the spine of your computer. It's what everything else connects to. So that is the backbone of everything. You need to just make sure your CPU is properly socketed. If you have an AIO cooler or tower cooler, it has like some extra hardware, get that on there. One thing a lot of people overlook, and this is just one that might save some people a headache. Almost every motherboard mounting hardware I've seen has 3M adhesive for the back, for the what do they call it, like the back plate. Use it. Trust me, it's better than trying to fish the standoff off later. But socket the CPU, put in your RAM, put in your store. Like if you have M.2 storage, put in your M.2 storage. Just prep everything that bolts directly to the motherboard first, because you're going to test it on. You're going to bench it first, anyways. Mm-hmm. And the best part about that is then from there you're going to plug in when you're still benching, you're going to be connecting your power supply to that. But once you disconnect your power supply from there, you already have your motherboard prepared. That's just going to drop in the case, screw it down, and from there it's put in your power supply. Get the case wired up first. That's the other one, is also like before you wire your power supply to everything, I usually go connecting the power supply is usually one of the last things I do when I'm doing the actual build, because it makes it easier for me to manage cables. I can kind of go through things as the case is built. Some cases will already have the front panel connectors already decently managed. So I can connect the front panel, I can connect the USB connectors, everything like that. Have that just easily connected. If you're going to use any RGB components, then make sure those are kind of in place, know where you want them, and get them wired up. Once you have all that done, then you already have those maybe partially tied down, maybe a few zip ties or cable ties, just keeping things put together. And then you get to the power supply and the graphics cards. The graphics card should generally be the last thing you're installing in the PC. It should be like the power supply should be right before that, but then the graphics card is going to be the last thing. That's kind of your that's your crown on top of your king right there.
And ironically, that's usually the first thing gamers want to buy, is that the last thing they need.
Absolutely.
So I don't work in customer service, but I always say my motto, honestly, is customer service is the only service. And on social media and the community channels, we're always trying to help people when they ask questions. And I think for us on social, I think the two biggest questions / controversies we see are regarding cooling. First being the AIO, and second being the fans. And the controversy is people have their own opinions on like the optimal way to install the AIO. Like tube should be up, tube should be down, radiator should be on top, radiator should be on the front. And then for the fans, for whatever reason, even though we give people diagrams on our product manuals and on our website that show air goes in, this way, air goes out that way. People have their own theories on how airflow works, and they, you know, make all these like weird diagrams of like, you know, can I have one fan blowing in and out in the front and then one fan blowing in and out on the top, and then all these different theories. So I just want to put people's minds at ease here and have you tell them, because you're the expert here, Jules, not me, not Mike, but you know, what common mistakes are people making when they're installing AIOs, when they're installing fans? Like what should people be aware of when installing those two things?
Okay. I'll start with AIOs because this is actually probably the simplest one. First up, the biggest rule you need to follow when installing your AIO is that your pump should never be the highest point in the loop. You should always make sure that, at least if it's a custom loop or an AIO, you want to make sure that the pump is going to be a little bit lower than everything else. That's why optimally I prefer to top mount every AIO I can get if I have the option. Or if it's going to be side mounted, then I just make sure that the pump cap itself is going to be below the top of the radiator. And that's just to make sure that air doesn't get into the pump itself, because it could heavily detriment the life of the cooler itself. You know, these are a properly maintained AIO doesn't, you know, the great thing about them being closed loop is they're set it and forget it. They'll work for years with no problems whatsoever. But if they get air into them and they start dry running, that will shorten their lifespan, and you'll know pretty quickly. You'll hear cavitation. You're going to hear just terrible noise out of it. So yeah, you just want to be careful about that one for AIOs. Just make sure that, you know, everyone does this whole debate of like, oh, your tubes need to be at the top, your tubes need to be at the bottom. In terms of performance, you're not going to see much, if any, difference. If you want to have your tubes at the top, the only thing you might experience is a little bit of an extra trickling noise, because there is an air gap in all AIOs. That's just there because water likes to expand and contract. And if that wasn't there, well, we would not want to use AIOs if there was no room for it to expand and contract, because that would be a matter of, well, now I'm going to have something pop.
So I guess since we're kind of talking about optimization and everything like that, is there like a way to optimize airflow in an NZXT case from either the cooler or the fan configuration?
Yeah, when I always tell this to people is air has two things it's going to want to do. When you're pushing air through, it's going to want to continue in as straight a line as possible. If it runs in anything, you're going to get turbulence. That's when you start getting case noises. That's when you start getting kind of just a reduction in performance. So that's why I really like on the 6 is that angled fan. It gives it a softer angle to go through. It's not like if you had a sidewall fan that's just completely flat, like on the 9, where that air is just going to blow towards the glass. So it doesn't have to make that hard 90-degree turn. So when I'm looking at how I do this, first rule is that air is going to want to travel in a straight line, and the other part is with any airflow, you'll notice this just in your own home, heat rises. That's just convection. And so you want to kind of generally have cool air comes in from the bottom or comes in from the side, and it's going to want to exhaust out the top. If you have a case like the 6, the 7, the 5, now that you can actually do that very easy bottom intake, you have that fresh air that's going to go to your graphics card, and that's where, you know, make sure your bottom is an intake. Make sure I always go front for my intakes for a lot of the cases I work with. And regarding that as well, when looking at your cooler, a big part of it is kind of deciding if maybe a certain fan doesn't need to be there anymore. I have, as I mentioned, the fan on the back of my 6. I don't really see much benefit to it as of late because I have an AIO. All my cooling is going to go out the top, so it doesn't need that extra air path right there. I can instead replace it with a sensor panel, something along those lines. But if I had a tower cooler, I would definitely want to have that there because I'm going to be passing air directly into that spot, I need to get it out of the case as quickly as possible. And you just want to make sure that you have a defined air path. Aside from that, try and keep things balanced. There's positive airflow and negative airflow. Positive is when you have a lot going in, negatives when you have a lot going out. And I think I might have got those flipped, but when you go into positive and negative airflow, you're going to run into problems. If your airflow is imbalanced, then you're going to start seeing dust collecting more either on the outside of your case, or if it's if you have nothing but exhaust, then your case is going to pull air from somewhere, and every place it can pull air from is going to be also where dust is going to get in. If you decide to have fun and build an H9 case and make every single fan an exhaust, that air gap that exists for the glass, that's going to be your intake.
Yeah, I mean,
I've actually seen that happen too.
Because we see in setups all the time, like, for like the photos, what they'll do is they'll put the fans all on the inside for intake because that's where the RGB is. And then someone will point out, like, wait, do you have all exhaust right now? It's like, it's for the photo. Like, they just wanted to make it look for the photo, but in like actuality, like,
doing it for the gram.
Yeah, exactly. Do it for the gram. But and I guess that kind of leads into my other question, which is like, are there any like tools or accessories or like tips that you can give that can make building a PC easier?
One of the most so a couple of the most valuable tools I've had, I was trying to see if I can find it, but it's not on my desk right now. Get a good screwdriver is really just my first start on that, is having good tools. And especially with building a PC, you could do everything with generally two sizes. You need a Phillips 0 and a Phillips 1. That's generally the only two bits you're going to need for most PCs. A Phillips 0 is going to be your big, or no, is it the 0 is the small one? I can't remember the sizes on these, but a Phillips 0 and a Phillips 1 are going to be generally all you need on it. You don't need to go completely out there. Like, I have an LTT screwdriver and an iFixit kit. Those are my go-tos. I've pulled those out just because they're usually in my laptop bag. But that would be in terms of like physical tools. Also, reusable cable ties. So just Velcro cable ties are super useful just for during the building process of like, I need to anchor down this cable for a moment. I need to anchor this cluster of cables together. If you want to keep things clean in the end, then yeah, you're going to use zip ties. You're going to keep them trimmed and it's going to look really clean. But Velcro ties are invaluable when doing a PC build.
I was actually going to ask you about cable management, but you already answered the question. I'm surprised you call them cable ties. Everyone I know calls them zip ties. I guess
I've heard
you don't want to get sued, right, by whoever owns that trademark.
Yeah, because zip tie is a trademark term, but yeah, no, I've heard zip ties, zap straps, all kinds of names, just depending on where you're in the world. But I've always kind of just used the term cable tie to cover everything, because that covers not only the usual zip ties, or I can't remember the actual term for them.
Do you say frisbee or flying disc?
I say frisbee, which I know it's the same thing with like tissues. I'll say tissues, but I know some people say Kleenex.
You're gonna get sued for that one day.
Oh yeah. Also, I say Band-Aid, but we all know Band-Aid is also a brand.
It's a bandage.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sure, Jules, you have come across a lot of builds in your time here and working in customer service. What is one of the coolest customer builds you've ever seen in an NZXT case?
I have seen some very interesting builds done where I think probably one of the most interesting ones I've seen is somebody doing a custom loop system where they actually did an external radiator on an H9. So that the case, it's one of the cleanest builds I've ever seen, because all you see is a couple of very short tube runs that go outside the case. They routed the tubes into the rear channel, and then there's an external radiator that was hidden off the side of their desk. And it is one of the cleanest builds that took me by surprise, because I looked at this case for maybe 20 minutes and I'm trying to figure out, I was like, where's the pump? Where's everything? I just see tubes. and
And
I racked my brain around it.
the radiator was on the desk.
Yeah, the radiator was off to the side of the desk.
Interesting.
Interesting.
And it was like a really cool radiator too. It was like a 360 by 360 radiator. Like if it was on the side of the case, it would look like an extra side panel just hanging out the side.
That sounds scary for some reason.
It sounds.
Well, I think we also had somebody we worked with who did the exact same build, and I was like, wow.
So I guess that's a creative way for somebody to use like a case. Has there been another creative way of like someone using an NZXT case from what you've seen? I guess.
Yeah. As of late, sensor panel mods. People adding, everybody's done this whole. It was a long time. We're all adding RGB. We're all adding other stuff, and then people was like, hey, I'm going to get a Raspberry Pi screen and like start showing system data, or maybe not even doing system data, but just like having what's effectively a fun billboard inside their case.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love that idea. And it goes back to one of my first mods I did on a case was I did a transparent LCD screen in an H440. That was the system I was using when I first started here. And that's made out of a torn apart monitor. I've got parts for another one. I'll eventually do it. But I did my H510 that was used in the office for the longest time also had that mod on it because I went to a thrift store, I found the panel, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna just do this. And it became a fun little project just to do for, just because it looked cool. I tried to do it on an H7 and I ended up destroying 2 very not cheap old monitors in the process. But those kind of mods where people are adding these parts to further express themselves, because that's one thing I do like is I'm an aesthetics first builder sometimes. The graphics card I have in here is a Yeston Sakura 3080, and I love this card. It looks great. I get people mad at me because I have my Founders Edition 3080 Ti sitting in its box right now, and like, but you have the better card. Why don't you use the better card? It's like, because this is pretty.
It is a pretty card. Are there any NZXT cases that are discontinued, Jules, that people are asking that still ask for?
I'm just gonna point this one out right here.
That's a man.
Ivan, I know you've got one in your background as well, but yeah, our good old friend the Manta comes up from time to time.
You know what's funny about that? Because that's my favorite NZXT case ever. I keep saying that like every stream, it seems. And yeah, it's right here in case you can't see. Or no, sorry, right here.
Yeah, there you go.
But what's interesting about this case is when it came out, the reaction from the community was this thing is too weird. And then we stopped making it. The reaction from the community is, when are you guys going to make this again? It's pretty awesome. So I don't know what the heck's going on.
I totally get that. I remember it was the 2 reactions I saw to the Manta when it came out, because it was before my time here, but it was, some people were like, oh, this is too weird, I don't want to work with this. And the other question is, hey, can I get a micro ATX version of this? That was me. I wanted a micro ATX version for the longest time because I thought the curved panels was really cool. I had not seen anyone else do it. And what I wanted to do the second I saw it is I want to hydro dip this case. The curved panels on it just lean itself so well to, as I said, expressing yourself with your PC, and that's the thing I want to do. Now this one's clean-ish, but it's a lot of fun to, like, it's a really fun case. And I know, like, we've seen even some other fun stuff. I actually remember when we were doing a little bit of cleanup around the office, and I ended up finding one of yours actually that you were very like wondering where it had gone. The
race car
Manta.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find the picture of it.
You probably search NZXT Rocket League Manta.
Yeah, here it is. Look at this thing.
Yeah, when I found that thing, I was I saw it, and the first thing I did is I pulled out my phone, took a picture, just sent it to Ivan. I'm like, "Hey, is this it?"
That's
And
it.
your response was, "My baby."
Uh,
I'm
but
like, cool. Where do you want it?
I actually got in trouble for making that. I spent way too much money on this thing. But yeah, shout out to Remis who built this, and Sharkbait Design Works who painted it.
Oh wow, you didn't
They
remember.
did a great job. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Uh, Jules,
that's
I do want to ask you some more questions about problems. Not to digress from the fun case here, but you know, because you brought up the Manta, and I've built, I think, 3 or 4 PCs in that case at this point, and I've seen a lot of people build in that case, as not just that case, but any case in particular. But I'm curious, what frequent problems do you think, or do you see people run into when they're building in NZXT cases? Not just Mantas. I just brought up Mantas because I have seen people run into problems with that case because they don't understand it because it's so big for a mini ITX case. But just in general, like what are the frequent problems that you see people run into when they're building inside of NZXT case?
a freaking problem I'm going to say on this one is overthinking and not reading the manual is actually a big part of it.
You're supposed to read
No
the
one reads
manual?
the manual.
Yes, it's not just a pretty map, that it's not just your pretty coloring book that you get with your case. But but yeah, definitely just you get a manual for a reason. We do these great little, fold out maps of showing where everything plugs in, and also just some people will not take a look at it and they're going to be overthinking of like where everything goes, and then you'll overlook things a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just one of those things. If you have a question, the first thing you should do is just check your manual real quick. Everything's laid out really nicely if you're confused about where something plugs in. And from there also, especially like with us, check the support site. Support.nzxt.com is our support page, and you'll find a lot of guides and FAQs. Someone may have already asked the question you have, and it may already be addressed.
Just check the manual.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
I
good advice.
always
I think that's good advice. I also think it's good advice to contact the customer service department. Um, the reason why I say that is because on social media, like I do see a lot of people that spend a lot of money on a PC, or a computer part. You know, Sometimes people will spend their life savings on a PC, to be honest, and
yeah.
they'll post on Reddit, or they'll go on the Discord server, or they'll go on Twitter and be like, "Hey, my PC's not working. What do I do?" And it's just like I always tell them, just get in touch with customer service, please. We're gonna help you. Like, it's not that I don't want to help them on Reddit or whatever, but it's just the customer service team will always know more than the social media team. And
Yeah.
not saying you shouldn't message us on social, we'll still help you when we can. But I mean, customer service, they're the ones that they know the answers. So I think that's good advice. Apart from
Yeah.
reading the manual.
I think also a
Yeah,
big
and
thing I
that's
want to point out is that our manuals are online. So if you do lose your manual, you can literally just look up Kraken this manual case, man. You can always do that.
The NZXT Chinchilla is in the chat saying it's not the 1900s. Why are you building a PC without supervision? It's a good point.
Yeah. And
Very
yeah,
good point,
as you said,
Chinchilla. Thank you.
a big thing on it is don't be afraid to ask questions or even just reach out. Some of my favorite calls to get during the day are people who are like, "Hey, I bought a Kraken or I bought a case. I'm stuck on this step, or I'm stuck on here. You know, how would you do this? How would you?" Is like, and just giving maybe somebody just a little nudge in the right direction. Because even if you think it's like, "Oh, this is a dumb question," it's like there are no truly dumb questions. You have a question, someone's going to have an answer, and they're going to help you out on it. A question that I've been getting quite a bit has been people picking up the, kind of diverging a little bit from cases, but people grabbing a Player 2 Prime and they get everything hooked up. They turn on the power switch, the PC flashes, but they don't get any signal. And I'm just like, hey, did you know under the small glass panel there's a little power button? Go ahead and press that, and the PC starts up first try. And like, oh, I hear people will do this like, oh, I feel so dumb. Or it's like, no, please don't. Like, it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to reach out if you are if you're running into a problem. Maybe even just getting somebody to ask that simple question of something you've overlooked will help. It is valid to ask questions, and the upside for that is we've got, at least for us, we've got several ways to do it. We've got the live chat on our website. It's in the bottom right corner of every page. That's a great way to get a hold of us. You can reach out to us via the ticket system at support.nzxt.com. During the week, during US hours, we have a phone line, which can also be found on the support page. So, definitely reach out. We're here to help out. And, if you may think it's like, oh, I've gone through everything. I've gone through every single step. We see hundreds of questions a day. And a lot of them are the same question over and over. That's why when it reaches that point, it goes into a frequently asked questions page. We're going to try and, I write a lot of those. I'm trying to actually improve them. But reach out with that question, or on a lot of the product pages, you'll actually find a Q&A where you can submit a question, and you can also see questions that other people have submitted. Go through that. Find, a lot of these, it's always best to just, hey, don't. And the big one is, don't try and just brute force fix it. If you can't find an answer, don't just start plugging things into random places. Don't start flipping cables. Don't plug your USB into a fan header. Please do not plug a USB into a fan header or an RGB header. I have seen some things in my time.
Next time, just at me, bro. I feel like you're just talking to me when you say that.
Just reach out. Just, and yeah, if it's like, hey, you're outside of hours, maybe go on Reddit. Maybe go on, if not our, if you're not just going on like r/NZXT, our build a PC. There's a lot of people there, or join the Discord community is also great for that, where people will just jump in and just ask a question. And, maybe you'll have situations where you'll get, maybe it'll just be some rando who will give you some answers, or sometimes it might just be somebody from the CS team who's just off hours checking things out. And it's like, oh, hey, I know the answer to this.
I think whatever you do, do not ping the NZXT chinchilla, because the NZXT chinchilla messaged me on Discord this morning because someone needed support, and he was like, they pinged the chinchilla instead of NZXT.
Well, I just have a quick question, a quick clarification as well, just before we go on to these other questions. Yes, there are no dumb questions, but who is dumber? Someone that goes, hey, I don't know what to do. Let me go ahead and ask and call in, or go to the tech support chat and just figure it out. Or someone that fries apart in their PC because they don't think to just go ahead and do a little bit more asking around. Who's dumber in this point? So seriously, do not be afraid to just ask questions. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, especially because I'll say this, and it's a big thing that people don't realize. We will generally help out to the best of our ability, but if it is a matter of user error to a point where it's egregious, like you decided it was if you decided it was a smart idea to plug a Kraken's USB cable directly into 12-volt RGB and just completely fried that cable, we don't know the extent of the damage. We may be able to provide you with a replacement cable and see if you can get things plugged in, but chances are that has done irreparable damage to the Kraken. And let's say you bought a really nice Kraken Elite V2 and you completely fried it out. Well, that's a very painful $300 lesson. I've had a few of them. I've had quite a few expensive lessons in my time, because I did run into that problem where I was a little too prideful. I didn't ask questions, and I broke some things. But I've also learned now, it's like, if I'm not finding the answer just off some basic troubleshooting, then I need to reach out. I need to ask questions. And I've been doing this for 23 years now. Wow. So
wow.
Yeah, I've been doing this since I was in middle school. I've I've killed components. I've completely destroyed computers in my time. That's comes with the territory on it, but it's all learning experiences. But the best thing about that is I have that experience and I can give advice based on it and maybe prevent you from deciding it was maybe worth taking a little bit more time to make sure something was wired correctly so that when you flipped on a switch, you didn't just turn a motherboard into some charcoal.
What would you say is the one piece of advice that will save a first-time builder a ton of frustration?
I think we just kind of covered a lot of that. Is the biggest piece of advice I have is ask questions. You know, don't be afraid to ask questions. You want to, you're a first time builder, and there's nothing wrong with that. The way you learn is through experience, but there are those who already have that experience, so maybe just tap into that resource.
Has anyone ever asked you a question where they thought they had a really big problem and in reality the fix was super easy?
All the time. I have had people who have reached out about like the power button situation with people trying to power up an H6 and completely forgetting about the power button on the front of the case is
Like,
a big one on that.
oh, I'm supposed to plug it into the graphics card.
Yeah.
Right?
CPU power is a big one. I've
Yeah.
seen people who are like,
Okay.
I've got everything hooked up. I press the power button and nothing's coming on. And I'm like, you know, did you make sure that your 8-pin in the top left corner of your motherboard's plugged in? It's like, oh, I don't think I need to do that. It's like, it's there for a reason. Maybe just ask that. But it's also a lot of the simplest, a lot of problems that you will rack your head over for hours can be broken down to the simplest answer. This system right here, there was a point where when I changed it over to an Intel platform and I rebuilt the whole PC, I was wondering why I was getting no display for a good 45 minutes. And then I realized that my graphics card wasn't powering on at all. And I was like, oh, I know what I did wrong. And it was because I have these little angled connectors on the back of the graphics that wrap around the back of the graphics card to keep everything clean. And I had not plugged those back in. So it was just no power going to the card. That was 45 minutes of wondering why I was getting no display.
Wow. I guess another thing is make sure to plug your monitor into your graphics card. Make sure you've turned the power switch on. You know, the standard stuff happens all the time.
Just start from the simplest answers and work your way up, because we always, especially if you're a builder who's been at it for a while, you tend to think, well, there's no way I could make that mistake. There's no way I would forget that. You know, that's your ego kicking in, and you need to tell your ego to like step aside for a minute, you know, keep it simple and just like, you know, if it's generally the most the biggest headaches usually have the simplest answers.
Keep it simpy, like me and Mike.
Mm-hmm. So I guess for the final thing, so let's say we finally put together this PC. It's working. It's everything's working a-okay. Games are being played, stuff like that. Do you have any software that people should like download and use to keep either eyes on their PC or just very helpful software in general?
Yeah. Right off the bat, and I'm not saying this as my way of plugging our software, but legitimately I do use Cam like daily. It's a good piece of monitoring software to have out there. I use other software alongside it, but for my at a glance, I use Cam. That's just been really solid. When benchmarking to just check parts and make sure everything's working properly, my preferred tool is OCCT. That just gives me a quick way of stress testing the PC, just doing a very good surface level check on everything of like run a power test, run a simple GPU test, run LinPack. You know, it gathers a lot of utilities and makes it really easy to make sure things are working. If you want to get into more along the paid software side of things, then grab yourself a copy of 3D Mark and use that to compare how your PC is performing against others, because that can really quickly expose if there is a hardware issue. I've had situations where you get everything hooked up and the graphics card is maybe not performing as well as it should, and you're trying to figure out what it is. And then that's where these other tools can come in. It's like, hey, I'm getting a low score. Why am I doing this? GPU Z, CPU Z are good tools of just checking what maybe the parts are running at, especially GPU Z. I've had a couple graphics cards that I've worked with where I'm wondering why they're performing so low, and then I'll actually load up GPU Z and find out that the card is stuck running in PCIe 3 by 1 even under heavy load. And I get confused for a little while what's going on, and I'll reach out to usually GPU manufacturer. I'll tell them, it's like, hey, this is what's going on, and they'll run you through the usual troubleshooting of, you know, reinstall drivers, reinstall this and stuff like that. And I was like, okay. And they'll be like, okay, yeah, this is an anomaly, this is weird, let's get that swapped out for you.
Yeah. And
so
when
it's
in
one of those
doubt,
things.
when in doubt, you can also just go to downloadmoreram.com. That's a good piece of software too. All right, Jules, I have a question for you from Sage the Plug. They ask, hey, here's a question for Jules. With all the tech support you give to customers, do you have any suggestions you do on your own build that is not the usual recommended way, i.e., a vertical front-mounted GPU, etc.?
Oh, that's something I've wanted to actually do for a build. Like, I want to actually do some more exotic mods on a case. But things that I'll do on a lot of these aren't really to the norm. That's a hard call.
There you go. I guess the answer is no. Jules,
yeah, no,
always,
like I do a lot of things that are a lot of things that are by the book, but it's more of, I think the thing that throws people off, and this is why I mentioned maybe get yourself some reusable cable ties, is I tend to try and cable manage things incredibly tight to make sure that it looks good when I take the side panel off. Okay. But gather things in ways that they kind of make sense going together, like gather fan cables together and make that one of its own run that will exist within a larger run. Stuff like that. Just keep things grouped is where I would say, because it's just going to make things easier when you eventually decide to swap out parts.
Gotcha.
I like that.
Alrighty, now it's time for everyone's favorite part of the show. We probably should get some theme music for this portion.
We should.
It's where Mike is going to ask you some rapid fire questions. Take it away, Mike.
Alrighty, Jules. You ready? Answer to however you want to do it, but usually the first thing on top of your mind is always the best. Okay, so easy ones. We'll ease it in. What games are you playing right now?
Right now, I am replaying through Gundam Breaker 4. I bought it on Switch when it came out, and then it was recently on sale on Steam and Good Old Games, so I went ahead and grabbed it for PC because it looks a lot better on there. Aside from that, my vice of choice for the past 18 years has been MapleStory. And so I've kind of gotten back into playing that. That's been a lot of fun. That's been, I think I got back on that maybe about a year and a half ago at this point, and just been having a lot of fun with it.
That's a fun game.
Yeah, and aside from that, I like to just pick up random stuff from time to time. I'm very much I like to modify games. I like to have a little bit of my own little bit of fun with it. What has I gotten here? Because I'm planning on doing with one of our other members of customer service, some other friends. We're looking at doing the Dark Souls seamless co-op mod.
Oh,
because we used to play a lot of it just normal before, and we tried out the Elden Ring seamless co-op, and that was a lot of absolute chaos. And now we're thinking about, well, what could we do with Dark Souls?
Ooh, that's fun. So I guess is MapleStory your favorite game of all time, or what is the number one game that you call?
My number one game of all time is actually a PlayStation 1 title. It is a game called Tomba. It is it's a action platformer with some RPG elements. It's got a very interesting main character who's this little dude with pink hair who it's just like you're jumping around, you're throwing these evil pig characters. It's such a charming game. It is so well polished. It is so much fun. And when they did the remake of it, when Limited Run had announced that and put it out, I jumped. I screamed. I was so happy, to the point where I bought the big collector's edition and almost every piece of merchandise they made available. I have the special edition Neo S controller. I have the plushies. I will buy everything for that game. I love it so much. And I ended up finding out later on down the road, because I was like, hey, I really like this. I started diving into who made this game. I found out that the guy behind it, Fujiwara, he is the father of the Ghosts and Goblins series, and a lot of that game's DNA is in Tomba. He made Tomba. He made Tomba 2 through a company called Whoopee Camp, and eventually those were the only two games that company had ever put out. He went into more of a mentor role later on and helped another company called Deep Space make a game called Extermination, which is also one of my other favorite games. It's a survival horror game from the PlayStation 2 before we got Resident Evil 4. And it's just, I love that. But going back to it, I really love Tomba. It's such a polished and fun platformer. It really lit that spark of why I love 2D platformers.
Wow. And I guess going along with that, so if you can only play single player or multiplayer for the rest of your life, which one are you going to choose?
Oh, that one is actually really hard, but I've found that I'm a much more social person. I feel like I would definitely need to. I don't think I could give up multiplayer gaming at this point. I am an MMO junkie. I've played MapleStory. I used to play a lot of WoW. I had to get out of it. I just kind of fell out of love with the game, and then I started playing a lot of Final Fantasy 14. I used to play EverQuest. I used to play a lot of. There was a point in my life where I think I have played upwards of 50 or 60 different free MMORPGs over the course of a few years, just trying things out. And so games like Perfect World, Repels, Terra, Wildstar, like I have played so many games over the years, and I've always, like, when it comes to especially massive multiplayer, that community that builds up from it is so fun.
Let's see. What is your guilty pleasure?
My guilty pleasure, okay, I will say this is like my guilty pleasure / hobby, to the point where it gets a little dangerous for me. But I build, like, my big hobby is I build model kits for just primarily mecha, so giant robots. And you can kind of see like one of them right here. There's this one that I just recently finished back here, if I can grab it. But this is my vice. This is my I love just having something that starts from just sheets of plastic, and eventually I get something that just looks so cool. And I'm learning more stuff. I'm starting to get a little more comfortable with painting, with customizing. So it's definitely that's my guilty pleasure on that one. Is I love model kits of all kinds. I don't even stick to just one company. The two that are on my desk right now are from two very opposite ends of that spectrum. They're both third-party companies, so they're not like big Bandai kits. The one on top of my desk that's kind of peeking over here, that's a Bandai kit. It's not Gundam, it's Super Robot Wars. But then I have cases behind my camera that are filled with Gundam, Zoids, Mega Man stuff, like all kinds of things. Just it's very therapeutic to me as well. Like, you have that, you start from plastic sheets, and at the end you have something that, like, I built this, I made this, and I look at it as like, I have the coolest toys. That's the best way to think about it, is I have the coolest toys.
I love that. All right, we're gonna get into some would you rathers. So first one, we'll start the standard easiest one. Would you rather have one wish for anything or infinite untaxed money?
Oh, I'm going for the infinite untaxed money right now. Like the wish for I feel like the one wish for everything one. I would be so afraid of like, oh, like having a big missed opportunity, because it's like that's such a heavy thing to have. But infinite untaxed money, I feel like that's one of those things that if you're smart with it, you can achieve a lot of goals that are not only good for you but good for the people around you. So that's where I'm looking at there is,
It's like it's either that. Money, you choose the money one, or you choose something else. But like I don't, a lot of my problems would be solved if I had untaxed money. Like I'm just gonna throw it out there.
No, if I had, if I had to never worry about, paying for anything, whether it be, going through school, worrying about food, just having the roof over my head, if I never have to worry about any of that again, then that is so much just general life weight off your shoulders. I feel like at that point, because all of that stress would be gone, your mind would just go into this like completely unlocked state of like, okay, I don't have to worry about what do I need to do. It's like, what do I want to do? What do I like really want to do? And just going into just full untapped potential mode.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Would you rather never have to deal with your clothes or your dishes again? It's always done for you.
Oh, I'm gonna go clothes. I'm legitimately gonna go clothes. If I never had to like ever worry about my laundry ever again, that would make things so much easier. Especially because like dishes could be useful, but I'm also one of those people that like when I'm done with a dish, I try to just be like, I'm just gonna clean this now, put it away, not worry about it, because if I don't do that, it's going to build up, it's going to become a headache later. And then I'm looking at a sink full of dishes. I would rather, and especially if anybody's a cat owner or even a dog owner and that animal is does wet food. If you've ever allowed wet food to sit in a sink or in a set of dishes, that stuff dries like concrete. It is such a problem. Just take not even 5 minutes. It takes. I don't even do like I don't use a dishwasher. I have a sponge, I have my sink, and I have a strainer. Just do it. Just take a couple minutes and just do it and not worry about it later on.
Would you rather never get tired or sick?
I have gotten incredibly sick in the past, and I would honestly rather never be sick again. I can agree. Being tired is like that reminder of, hey, you need to stop, you need to rest, you need to slow down and just enjoy things. You need to enjoy things for what they are. If you're tired, that's your reminder of like, hey, you're alive, time to just breathe. But being sick sucks. I've had COVID 3 times.
Oh.
So once actually before lockdown, I went to a concert. I came back. I was incredibly ill, and we found out afterwards that yes, I had actually gotten infected. Then the second time was after going to actually the second and third time were both after going to a convention, and it was one of them. I should not have driven home. I will say that I made it all the way to an exit. I felt really terrible. My friends and I went to go eat breakfast, and I was just sitting there at the table. We were at I think it was an IHOP, and I'm just sitting there with a giant cup of hot chocolate in front of me because that's the only thing that sounded good. I drank that. I think I got like something simple to eat. We went back to my friend's house about a block away from there, and I passed out on his bed for about 6 hours.
Bruh.
Yeah, no, the funniest thing is that was full blown COVID. I was asleep on his bed for 6 hours. He didn't get it. He came out of that.
He's immune.
It was Juan. It was Juan from CS.
Wow.
Like he dodged that, and he Like that was just the whole thing. That took me out for about 2 weeks. I would rather never go through that part again.
Yeah.
And if this thing would stop, I need to find the timeout on this camera.
Okay, and then for the final question, this is a theoretical. Okay, so I give you $1 million right now, or you get $50,000 for every kill you get in Counter-Strike. One game. So you have to get at least 20 to get it, which is very easily done. But then if you get to like 30 or 40, that's extra change in your pocket. What are you thinking? I know Ivan. I wonder what Ivan's thinking right now because he's a Counter-Strike guy.
I would take $1 million.
I'm with Ivan. I'm with the guaranteed mill. I am like just straight with the guaranteed mill. Like I get it. Like hey, I can stack kills and easily jump over that. But there's also that whole thing of maybe during that game I'm just not going to do too well. Maybe it's going to be that whole thing of everyone's just going to end up rushing 1 point, and I'm going to go there and I'm going to get nothing but assists, or I'm going to get I'm not even going to be able to get anything through, or I am just going to get dogpiled and just completely wiped out. I walk out with maybe 100k, maybe 150k. It's like because I just didn't get the opportunity to to click some heads, and now it's more of just like, no, I'm taking that guaranteed mill right off the bat.
I was wondering if Ivan would be like, because I know he's a Counter-Strike guy, he'd be like, no, I do it. I get 30 kills easy kind of thing.
I mean, maybe back in the day when I was actually...
I'm just seeing Ivan with the Satoru Gojo meme of just like, nah, I'd win.
Yeah. I mean, 10 years ago, maybe. Now, there's like no chance. Like, I'm just taking that mill, and I am even going to pay those taxes on that mill. That's how confident I am. I cannot get more than 20 kills of Counter-Strike.
I didn't think about that. California taxes would be pretty. You get like 600,000 then.
Yeah,
I'll take the 600k.
All right, I think that's it on the things. Before we go into announcements, Ivan, is there anything you want to say before I go into announcements?
There is, Mike. I just want to thank Jules for joining us for Case-A-Thon stream number 3. It's been great chatting with them. I also want to let him know he's doing a great job. I really appreciate everything he does for NZXT. So thank you, Jules, for all your hard work.
Okay. You're welcome on this one. Like, yeah.
All right.
No, I try to always help y'all guys out. Like when you guys hit me up, I try to get back to you as soon as I can.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, we go to announcements real quick. So first, we're doing a Case-A-Thon, so we have tons of cases and other things available. Go to nzxt.co/Amazon or !deals in chat. You can save up to 38% off on NCC cases and a bunch of other things that we have on sale on Amazon. If you guys want to see what's next on the Case-A-Thon, Laurent was in here earlier, but we have all the details of the NCC Case-A-Thon on the NCC blog. You can go to nzxt.co/blog. And I see there's Harbor Quest. There's a Harbor Quest alert right there. You're claiming your Poochie points, and to use those Poochie points, you can join in free giveaways. Ivan said that there's going to be some special thing that he's adding in soon. So literally, there it is. Literally, you just participate. It's super easy. It's free points, and you can literally get free stuff. I literally just sent out like a bunch of cases and peripherals and everything like that. So join the club, nzxt.co/club. Or !club in chat. Follow at NZXT on all social media platforms, and then email podcast@ncc.com and let us know what you think of the Case-A-Thon. And thank you, Jules. Seriously, like being an awesome customer support agent, like 10 out of 10. And also thank you for joining us and giving us some really good insights. And honestly, like I may use up some of those things later, especially. May add that case sensor into my PC because I'm looking at it, I'm like, I could do it too.
Oh, it's one of the like coolest mods you can do that requires so little effort on it, and especially nowadays people are coming up with really cool ways of like mounting them. You'll find some of them nowadays where they'll actually like hang off of your fans.
Whoa.
So like you'll find like ones you'll get like a bracket with it that'll just mount from the top of your case. It can look really sweet. I want to do one in one of my builds where it's I want to do a very cyberpunk inspired build, and so I want to build one up, maybe not as like a regular sensor panel, but kind of go a little deep on it, make it look like a billboard, and then like hide the sensor information in it. Like I want to do something fun like that.
Nice. Do you have anything before we give the people out here the secret word and end the podcast? Do you have anything you want to say?
Yeah. So I will say this. I always try to get this out there. Support.nzxt.com. That's our main support page. Definitely check it out if you've got questions, and if you've got something that's not on there already, shoot us a message. Submit a ticket, and if you'll get either myself or someone else on the team who will get back to you. But those questions really help. We actually try to, especially if we get one where the question comes in a lot, it's gonna find its way into an FAQ eventually, and we want to we're trying to improve that. Always just if it's just simple, if it's just a big, just like, I don't know what's going on here, like my computer's not starting or something's just not plugged in right, just reach out. Just always ask more questions. Don't think that you have to do everything yourself. just ask questions. It's better to ask permission than beg forgiveness later on in some cases. That's the one we're looking at here. And I know many people have said, I will say that comment I made earlier about plugging a USB into a 12-volt power, I did not just pull that out of nowhere. I have seen that more times than I can count on one hand. That's why I try to tell people and also for, plugging in like an NZXT 4-pin into 12-volt power. Those are 5-volt base. If you do that, you will kill the fan. Just always don't just think, oh, it looks like it's work. That's covered in the manual. It says don't do that. So check the manual, ask questions, and don't be afraid to ask questions. There's no shame in it.
Read the manual?
And and maybe don't ask in Chinchilla every question on that. They might be able to give you some good advice. But there's other things of,
avoid the rodents.
They're dusty little guys.
Yes.
And dust is the enemy of your electronics.
Okay, I think that's it. Ivan, you have anything before I end the podcast for the people?
No, thank everyone for tuning in. Thank everyone for being part of the NZXT club. Appreciate y'all.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give the code right now. Remember, we are giving away three winners. Will get 3 cases. You guys can choose whichever one you want. So make sure to do !point giveaway, do all the Gleam entries, and I'm going to give away the NZXT taxes. It's actually a funny code. I wish I did that. That's a funny one. But it's always got to be case related, so I got to make a pun. So the code for 500 extra entries into the Gleam giveaway is Rest My Case. Rest My Case is the code for 500 extra entries. That's your way of saying thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Jules, for joining us as well. And remember, tune in live on Fridays at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on the official NZXT Twitch. And don't forget to listen to previous episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Got any questions for us? Send an email to podcast@nzxt.com or tag @NZXT on all social media platforms. Thank you, Jules. Thank you, everyone. Have a safe weekend. See you guys later.